Welcome back, everybody. Let's talk about Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which is the second Harry Potter film, and I'm reviewing all these films leading up to Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, which comes out the 16th of November. So I've got a little bit to finish off the rest of these films, but I reviewed the first film, so check that out. And the second film, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, I think, honestly, like, in terms of, like, ranking these movies is going to be really hard because I'm going to do a ranking, of course, after this, after all these reviews. But man, this like is just as incredible as the first one, but even outdoes the first one. I love everything about the Chamber of Secrets. I love how they do. I love how it's a very good companion piece between the first two movies, where they connect plot points from the first one and resolve them in the second one. I think that's really cool, and they did that in the novel too. And this one, in terms of like adaptations, because I've read the book a lot of times, this is very close, like the first one, to like being very faithful, as opposed to like how 4, 5, and 6, Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, and Half-Blood Prince are not as faithful because they were such big books, and you can't do that in like make them squeeze that much into a 2.5-hour movie or 3-hour movie. So the first 3 books, I think, do a great job, and Deathly Hallows 1 and 2, since that's a 2-parter, they do a good job of being very accurate and faithful to the book. So I really love that this one is, again, very faithful. Now, I loved how it opened, where Harry now has a bedroom, and they mentioned that, I think in the book of the Sorcerer's Stone, they didn't mention it in the movie, but he eventually gets the bedroom because they keep getting all the letters. That didn't happen in the movie, but it still is cool that like Harry now has a little bit more freedom. He's not stuck in a cupboard anymore. Like, I'm glad that he got some freedom now, because Hagrid scared him enough in the first movie. So I thought that was good that he finally got his own space. But it's funny because he gets his own room. It seems like, oh, that's really cool for Harry, but then none of his friends are writing to him. He's got, like, they're literally for some reason not writing to him at all. And Hedwig can't be let out because Uncle Vernon won't let him. And then they have Harry's stuck upstairs while Vernon has this job meeting with these colleagues of his at his job, where he's going to get a new position. And funny enough, right when that happens, Vernon is already telling Harry, like, you can't do anything freaky while they're around, like, and then Dobby the house elf appears, this character who is a really cool character, honestly, and the CG in this for 2002 is really good. Like, it's surprising how good this is. Like, of course he's not really there, but the work on the CG for Dobby, I think, is really effective. And I think that he just feels like a real person there. Like, I like how real he feels. So like I said, of course, Vernon has this dinner with his colleagues, and then Dobby shows up to where he tells Harry that, like, you can't go back to Hogwarts. There's something sinister that's going to happen. And then he lets it slip, like how Harry says Hogwarts is my home. All my friends are there. And then he says friends who don't even write to Harry Potter. And then Harry just goes, well, I would assume that, hang on, how did you know I wasn't getting any letters? And then Dobby has letters with him, so that gives Harry a moment of weakness, where Harry actually runs out with Dobby, or he runs downstairs, and Dobby magically makes this cake appear, or makes this cake float that they were making for the colleagues. And he tells Harry, like, you mustn't go back to school, and Harry's like, I can't, like, Hogwarts is my home. And then Dobby says, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Potter, but if this happens this way, then I've got to do it for your own good. So he drops the cake on one of the people that are there to talk to Vernon about the job, this dinner. And then Harry gets locked up in his room, like the doors and the windows are barred shut, and then Dobby escapes before all this. Like, he snaps his fingers and he just fades away. Which, Dobby, I know with the whole movie, like, you know that Dobby is trying to be, like, he is truly caring for Harry Potter. Like, he is trying to stop this thing that's going to happen in the movie. But at first, it seems like he's a little shit in a way, because he is trying to be careful with Harry, like make sure he doesn't go back, but like he's taking away everything that Harry has, and he's a house elf, so he doesn't fully understand like that's not the right way to go. But it seemed like it was right in his mind. But like I said, Harry gets bars on his window, gets locks on the outside of his door, and Vernon like says like you'll never see this freaky friends of yours again. And then that night Harry's sleeping and then he sees lights coming through his window, and this is an awesome scene where Ron, Fred, and George appear in their Ford Anglia, like a blue one. They appear and take Harry with them, and they break off the bars, and then Vernon and Petunia and Dudley like hear this and run into the room, and they put all the stuff in the car, and Harry's left in there. Harry jumps out, and then Vernon grabs his leg like, "You're not going anywhere. You and that bloody pigeon aren't going anywhere." But of course they pull out, and then Vernon falls out the window into the bushes, which was really just a fun scene, and I love the fact that just was a really incredibly memorable scene. And then the music, the score, of course, John Williams in this movie again has an incredibly memorable score, one of the best. And I also loved it too. It's kind of nostalgic because I also had, even though this whole movie is nostalgic, it's nostalgic in a way because I had this Lego set where like it was Escape from Private Drive, where like you had the car and then you had the house, and it could break off the window with the car and fly away with Harry. So I remember that Lego set so fondly, and it just always stayed with me with that and the scene of them escaping and taking Harry with them out of the house. That's really cool. I love that scene. The use of the car in this movie is awesome. I really love every time they use this car. It's really a fun way, and I'll mention it as I go along. But I really love that, and I loved how after this they go to Ron's house, like to the Weasley's house, and we get more of the Weasley family. And I love how they just elaborate on the first one, because in the first one you only saw in one scene with Mrs. Weasley and Ginny, but then Fred and George and Percy and Ron were at Hogwarts, but you didn't see much about Mrs. Weasley or Ginny or even the father. You didn't even see the father in the first one. But in this one, you get more of Ginny because she's got this kind of fixation on Harry now that she's kind of had a crush on him. Because it's hilarious where they come in and like Harry says hello to her and she just goes and then just backs up and runs away. And then like Ron explains that she's been talking about him all summer. So I like seeing more of Ginny, and she's very important as the movie goes along. But I like this scene at the Dursley house where like you also meet Arthur Weasley, who works at the Ministry of Magic and likes Muggles. So he's fascinated with how Muggles work, and I really think that's just a cool thing in this magical world to have somebody be so desensitized by magic. He likes to see what Muggles like to do. Like I think that's really a cool alternate thing in this magical world, seeing like he wants to know what Muggles are like and how they work and how they use stuff. Like he even asks Harry a question like, what is the function of a rubber duck? But then Harry doesn't respond because the owl like hits the window and gives them their letters. But I just thought that this family and seeing the Weasley family is cool, and seeing more of them in their house with all the magical ways everything is working in the house is really cool. Like the clock that shows like where they are in the world, like location wise, and it says like it would go up to where they'd be at home. Like whenever they get in there, all three of the brothers, the clock points to home. That's really cool. And like magically having something being knitted or like having dishes being washed. It's just really cool to see this, to see their house and see them in the movie, and they really are a great like set of characters of the Weasley family. They're all interesting and all fun. But then we got the scene where they of course go to Diagon Alley, but then Harry accidentally ends up in Knockturn Alley. And I like how this sets up, after he leaves Knockturn Alley, it sets up Gilderoy Lockhart, who Kenneth Branagh plays, which is really cool that he's in this, because Kenneth Branagh is one of those actors that is just really, really fun. And as I go along with this, I'll explain more about Gilderoy Lockhart, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher in this movie, since Quirrell died in the last one. And Gilderoy Lockhart is just an interesting, smarmy character, and Kenneth Branagh can only do that with his personality, because Kenneth Branagh is just a great actor, and a good director too. Like I like how he's both, so that's cool that he's in this movie. And whenever I was a kid, I knew nothing about Kenneth Branagh. Like, who is this guy? I just thought he was like this guy in this one movie. I didn't think he did anything else. But then, of course, I've seen a lot of his stuff now that he's done since I've grown up. But yeah, I like the introduction to Gilderoy Lockhart, and I like how they go, like, it goes from that to where Harry and Ron and everybody else are, after they've shopped and got everything done, they're gonna go into 9 3/4, the platform 9 3/4, and go through the wall. But then at the last moment, Harry and Ron try to go through, but they crash and can't go through. The barriers broke. The barriers like blocked them from going in. And then it's 11 o'clock on the dot where the train leaves, so they can't go in there. And I really love, again, because of the car, this is a cool thing where they use the car again to their advantage, where Harry and Ron, they can't get through, so they go and drive the car, but drive it in London up in the air, where at least 7 muggles have seen this flying car up in the air. Like, they had to be obliviated later, I guess, or used to have their memory wiped. So I just thought that was awesome, using the car again, where they go and try to catch the train with their car, Harry and Ron, but then Harry falls out to where Ron has to grip him and try to get him back in the car, because they almost hit the train. And then they don't get on the train, but they still make it to Hogwarts with the car. But then the car sputters down and then crashes into the Whomping Willow, which is a tree that bashes with all these different parts of it that'll just bash the car, and it's really cool. And just, again, really fun. I really love all those moments with that, where like they're being terrified in this car, like getting hit by the Whomping Willow. That's really great. And I really love scenes like that. And then we get to Hogwarts, where like the last movie, where they have a lot of classes, like with Professor Sprout and the Mandrakes, which is fun. Like the screaming Mandrakes that'll just scream where you can't hear anything, like it'll make you go deaf, basically, almost. Or having Gilderoy Lockhart, where you go into his class and he's this just smarmy guy, like talking all about himself. Everything that he does is about him, and like everything he mentions is about him. And I like, again, because of Kenneth Branagh's personality. But scenes like that, again, like the first movie, are great. And Chris Columbus directed this one just like the first one. This is the final one he directed. But these two both feel very close, but they just really do a great job of being different as well. Like, a new introduction to different teachers doing different magical things is really fun and really interesting in this movie, like the first one. And they keep going to different groups of teachers, so they don't just do the same thing over again. So I think that's awesome. And I like how the plot, like, basically there's a lot of moments where it's not really plot, which I'm totally fine with, because these characters are fun. It's so interesting seeing all these magical things happen like the first one. There's so much whimsy in this like the first one. The first two are very whimsical, and then they get dark as after this one. Prisoner of Azkaban starts the dark route, but I mean, that's totally fine because they're still great, but I really love this one, like the first one, and just how whimsical it is. But as it goes along, there's moments where I kind of do like how they, again, elaborate on these characters. Like, you realize in this one, like, Hermione is a mudblood, which is a racist term by Malfoy. Or Draco Malfoy says to her. And it means dirty blood, like non-magic parents. So I like that moment between her and Hagrid where he explains what that means, or she explains what that means, and then he cheers her up and like tells her like that it doesn't really matter what you are, if you're born from non-magical parents or not. And I just think that's a really great scene, and it really showed how much these characters keep growing from the last movie. Like Hermione, like, I like that moment where you realize that she's of non-magical parents, and it's treated like a racism thing in the wizarding world. So I really love scenes like that, and I love how they elaborate on her in this movie. I think that's great. And then the basic plot of this, as it goes along, is that the students of the school start getting petrified, and it says with blood on the wall that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened again. and all the teachers are freaking out, not realizing what this is. It's happened before. One student died a long time ago. And then you realize as it goes along that Hagrid was expelled and Hagrid was framed as it goes along. And then Harry and Ron have to go to Aragog, which again is a great scene. And they use the car again because they have to escape through the car. But they learn from Aragog that Hagrid was innocent after Harry sees in this diary like a literal memory of Hagrid getting framed by Tom Riddle, who is the book owner of this diary. So yeah, that's really cool. And then as it goes along, Tom Riddle, you realize whenever Harry and Ron go down into the chamber and they erase Lockhart's memory because he backfires on him with Ron's broken wand, they all go down there to save Ginny. And then you realize that Tom Riddle is Voldemort, and it's just such a cool twist. And the first time I saw that as a kid, I was like, whoa, that's so awesome, because he literally, like, in the air makes all the words, like all the letters saying Tom Marvolo Riddle, and then he magically switches these letters around to where it says I am Lord Voldemort, so it equals, like, it's the same, it's all those letters, but he makes it to where it says I am Lord Voldemort. That was really just an awesome twist, and I always love that twist, even though I've seen this dozens of times. I think that's awesome. And this young version of Tom Riddle is great because he's like a teenager. He's not even, I guess he's like an 18-year-old. Like he's the final age of being at Hogwarts. And I love this scene, and I love how you realize that he took Ginny and he kind of put her in a trance where she put her blood on the wall. She made it to where the basilisk led them to all these people who got petrified, all these half-bloods or mudbloods, but they all didn't die because they all had something. Like Colin Creevey had the camera where he saw through the camera, or Hermione saw through the mirror, or Filch's cat saw through the water on the ground. So they all didn't die except Myrtle, Moaning Myrtle, who's the one who died. She died because she just saw him straight up the basilisk with his eyes. And I love how Tom Riddle explains that all that, like he made Ginny do all this, and he possessed her in a way. Because at the beginning of the movie, whenever they're in Diagon Alley in Gilderoy Lockhart's shop, Lucius Malfoy, Malfoy's dad introduced in this movie, throws a book in Ginny's cauldron, and then that's the diary that Tom Riddle had. So Tom Riddle possessed her all the way through the whole movie, and I really love that twist. I love that you realize that he's Voldemort, and I love that he was the one in charge of it all, and that Ginny did all this, but she was in a trance. She wasn't doing it on purpose, but I thought that was so cool. And then I love the final fight with the basilisk, where Fawkes the Phoenix, who was introduced earlier in the movie, when Harry goes in to talk to Dumbledore after everybody is thinking that he's the one petrifying the students because he can speak Parseltone. I love that scene where Fawkes comes in at the end of the movie and then literally just pulls out the basilisk's eyes, because if the basilisk looks you in the eye, it will kill you. But since everybody else was looking at it through the water, through a camera, through a mirror, they didn't die. But I love the fact that the Fawkes takes out his eyes, rips out both of the basilisk's eyes. So then Harry has to fight the basilisk head on, and I love this chase. It's great because it's just Harry on his own, because Ron and Lockhart are trapped behind rocks in another area down in the chamber. And whenever Harry gets up to the top of that Salazar Slytherin head that's just standing there, he gets up on top of it and impales the basilisk and kills him. And Harry gets a basilisk fang in his shoulder, and it hurt, and it's venom, it's gonna kill him. So Harry comes down to Tom Riddle and Ginny, and Ginny's about to die. Tom is using her to become real again, he's from the book, he's gonna come out and be real. And Ginny is basically almost dead. She's got a minute left to live. And then what Harry does is, since it's venomous, he realizes he can just stab the diary that Tom Riddle has, and Tom Riddle freaks out no, don't do it. And then he stabs the book, and Tom Riddle dissipates and is destroyed, and then Ginny comes back to normal and comes back to life. And I really love that. I love that it builds on Ron and Ginny too, because as the series goes along, you'll see how their relationship goes. But this is a great, even though she's barely in the movie, I love that she is so vitally important, and it doesn't matter if she's not in the whole movie or not. And whenever she's in the movie, earlier she's got suspicious looks because she did do this, and I love that. I love that fact. But I love whenever Harry and Ginny have that talk, like, she's like, I swear, I never would have done that. I didn't realize what the book was. And then they all escape. And I love the fact that they all escape, and it's the book cover for Chamber of Secrets, because it's them flying out with Fox holding them all, Fox the Phoenix, and, like, they all are flying out. That's the image of them, in like, the image in the cover of the book. I think that's really cool. But I really love that, and I love moments like that, and I just love that final fight, and I loved how they, like, Voldemort came back, but he wasn't truly there this time. Like, he was there with Quirrell in the first movie, but in this one he is from a book, which will be important later, and I won't really spoil it. I'll just talk about it whenever I get to that movie, get to those movies. But I really like that, and I like that Voldemort, again like the first movie, explained how Quirrell was destroyed by Harry's mother's protection, like love, in the first movie. In this one, you have the same kind of scene, but Dumbledore tells Harry after they come back that the reason that Harry could speak partial tongue is that Voldemort, whenever he tried to kill Harry, he embedded part of his abilities into Harry unwillingly, so Harry could speak partial tongue. So that's why the Sorting Hat in the first one wanted him to be in Slytherin, but Harry wanted to be in Gryffindor, and that's great. Again, they do a callback to the first one where they finish that arc, where, like, it's the Sorting Hat, and they talk about that, and the partial tongue thing, where that was in the first movie established, but nobody knew about it except for Harry. He just thought it was normal, and Dumbledore says in this one, like, it was just transferred power from Voldemort after he tried to kill him. So I really think that's cool that they do, again, just continue on these story arcs and connect the first movie to this movie with the partial tongue thing, with the Sorting Hat, and also how Harry said he wanted to be in Gryffindor even though the Sorting Hat wanted him to be in Slytherin. I love the fact that whenever the sword is summoned, but whenever he fights the Basilisk, Godric Gryffindor's sword, Dumbledore says, like, that makes you a true Gryffindor, like, because the sword wouldn't have gone to not a Gryffindor, because Harry is, like, so that solidified that Harry is in Gryffindor, that he's a good person, as opposed to having part of Voldemort's abilities with him inside of him because of that scar. So I just thought that was cool that they connected those things. And I love that the last scene, one of the last scenes is when Lucius Malfoy comes in, and this is whenever Dumbledore comes back, because Fudge from the Ministry of Magic takes Hagrid and Dumbledore, and Lucius Malfoy, Dumbledore explains to him, like, a lot of people at the Ministry were under the impression that Lucius would have cursed every one of their families because he wanted to keep Dumbledore away, because he gave Ginny the book, so he let on. Lucius Malfoy is the villain in this movie. Like, he did the whole thing. Even though Voldemort is the villain, but he's from the book. He's not actually there. He failed at coming back to real life, or becoming real. So Lucius Malfoy is the true villain in this movie, and I love how he brings in Dobby, and then Harry realizes the whole time that Dobby, earlier in the movie, explained that, like, he took the letters, he stopped Harry and Ron from going through the 9 3/4, and then at the Quidditch match, that bludger was being hit around, and that was Dobby controlling it. So Dobby was doing all these things to try to get Harry Potter out of school, because he realized that Lucius Malfoy, who is his owner, was going to do these awful things, open the Chamber of Secrets, and do all these things with the diary. And I love how Lucius Malfoy is just horrible in this movie, in a good way. Like, he's perfectly horrible. Like, I love... And Jason Isaacs is a great actor, and he's great in this performance as Malfoy's dad. But Harry, like, after seeing Dobby is owned by Lucius Malfoy, and Lucius Malfoy, like, kicks Dobby, like, just beats him, like, just, like, where he's walking out with him, after Lucius has lost. Then Harry gets the diary, puts a sock in it, gives it to Dobby, or I mean, gives it to Lucius, and Lucius hands it to Dobby, and then Dobby realizes Master has given Dobby a sock, and then Lucius is like, "What? I didn't." And then he looks like, oh shit, like I'm gonna lose my servant. And then Dobby's like, Dobby is free, and then Lucius just sits there like to Harry, "You lost me, my servant." And this spell isn't referenced until later, until Goblet of Fire, but the curse that Lucius Malfoy almost does to Harry is the killing curse, Avada Kedavra. He just says Avada, and then Dobby uses a power to like knock Lucius down before he finishes this spell, but Lucius was gonna literally flat out murder Harry Potter. That would have been on an interesting route if that happened in this movie, and we never got any more movies or books. Like, he just killed him right there. That would have been awful. But he was so close to killing him. That's the crazy part, that Lucius Malfoy is that much of a horrible person. But again, the performance is so great, and this character is just so unlikable, but in a way where it makes me so mad. And there's other characters in this franchise that I will get to that I cannot stand, but in a way where they're just, you love to hate them. And Lucius is just so great. So I really love that. And I love how the ending is a very happy, very, very happy ending, because everybody gets cured and Hagrid comes back. Hermione gets cured because she was petrified and wasn't in the last act of the movie. Or the last place they go in the movie is the chamber. Before that, she gets petrified, so she never goes in on the action, but I love seeing her back, and it's just a nice reunion whenever she gets cured from being petrified. And then everybody gets cured, and then Hagrid comes back after being in Azkaban, because they send him to Azkaban because he was framed the first time with Aragog, thinking Aragog killed Moaning Myrtle. But I love that moment where Hermione comes back and then Hagrid comes back, and it's just a really sweet moment of them like all getting together and just happy that they're together again. And I think that's just a great way to end it. I love this ending as well. Just overall, I love these first two movies, rewatching them again, and I know I love them all, but rewatching these first two, they've got so many great things about them, and I don't know, it'd be hard to rank these. These might be my least favorite, but these are fantastic, the Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. So we'll see, because the other ones, like, are so incredible as well. So this is a perfect franchise to me, and I don't know how the hell I'm going to rank these, but we'll see. But I love that final scene of them, like, all getting back together, seeing each other again after every horrible thing that happened in the movie. So I love that ending. I love everything about this one. I love all the characters again. I love how incredibly well made this movie is, how it flows incredibly well. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it works really well. It's almost the length of the Lord of the Rings movie. So I love the fact that this works so well, and this is the longest one out of all the movies. So I love that they made this flow so well, and Chris Columbus did a great job in this one and the first one, and John Williams, of course, is incredible with this score. All the characters are great, the thrills are great, the action's great, everything about seeing this magical world, seeing all these wonderful characters again, it's just so great. So I love rewatching Chamber of Secrets. So yeah, this one was just incredible. Just rewatching it again, out of a perfect franchise, just another great, incredible one. So I really love this one. Thanks guys so much for watching. I'm so excited to talk about the rest of them, especially the next one, Prisoner of Azkaban, which is a lot of people's favorites, critically and fan favorite. It is one of the most praised out of all the franchise. So I'm excited to talk about Prisoner of Azkaban after this. So thanks guys so much for watching this. Comment, like, subscribe if you feel like you want to. So thank you so much for watching.